Hello, on this video I'm going to talk about Visual Studio MVC, session variables, and the view bag. Now this video is one of the videos in a series. If you have not watched the previous videos, I'm going to leave a link on the description of this video so you can go watch them. So for this video I'm going to explain how the session works, then I'm going to write some code to show you how it's done. And then after that, I'm going to do the same thing with the view bag. So the session is a space in memory on the server side that can store values. So now because it's on the server side, then it's a little bit safer than cookies. Although you should not store any sensitive data on the session, but it has a lot more privacy on the session than it has on the cookies. So cookies are stored on the client sides and session are stored on the server sides. So another thing about session is that session are not shared across browsers. All right, and the last thing about session is that session does not last forever. It will expire eventually. And when it expires, all the values in the session get deleted. All right, so let's write some code for the session then. So this is where we left off from the previous video. So if you remember in the previous video, I insert a animal on the database and then I return a ID. So I want to store that ID in the session. To do that, I'm going to use the HTTP context and then session dot set string, and now I have two things that I need. One is the name of the key that I want to save, so I'm going to save this as animal ID, and then the value is ID. So doing so, I save the ID into the session. But now, how do I test if the ID got actually saved in the session? One thing that I can do is to get the ID from the session. So I'm going to do this only for testing purpose, because I want to check if the ID actually got saved properly on the session. So for that, I'm going to create a string, and the string is going to be http context.session.getString, and then I pass the same value that I used to save the ID. So in my case, it's going to be animal ID. So I pass the animal ID here, and now I am able to retrieve the information. Now I do have a green squiggly here, and this green squiggly means this my return null. So if this my return null, then my string needs to be nullable. So I want to put a question mark here, and that will solve the problem for me. So again, this is how you save the item in the session, and this is how you retrieve the value from the session. And I'm going to run the debugger just to check that what I wrote here is good so far. And then I'm going to put some random values here. It doesn't really matter what I put. I'm going to click on submit, and I get an error. And the error is right here when I set the session. It says session has not been configured. Okay, so it has not been configured because I did not configure this for using session. So now I'm going to configure this to use session. So I'm going to go to View, Solution Explorer, and then I'm going to go to programs.cs, open this file, and I need to modify this file here slightly. Right here after line 13 on app.useStaticFiles, I'm going to do app.useSession, and this is enables the session. And then I'm going to do one more, And then on the builder, I'm gonna do a builder dot services dot add the session. And this is going to add the session. So one is to add and the other one is to use. So I should put use here instead of add. All right, so all I did in this file is to add line number 5. And also I added line number 15 on this file. So, all right, so I'm gonna close this file. I'm gonna go back to controller and I'm gonna run the debugger again. Hopefully this time it works. I'm gonna put some random data here. Click on submit. All right, so now I wanna make sure that the string actually has a value. So if you hover over the str, it has a value of 22. And 22 is the ID that got generated when I inserted the last record in the database. So if I go to my database and I look at the zoo table, I'm going to right click and script tables as, select to new query editor. And I want to run this guy. And if you look at the last row that he wrote, which is the LLL, the number 22 is here, and the number 22 is the primary key of the row that just got inserted. All right, so I know this works and I know this works, so I'm gonna comment it out here and then I'm gonna stop this program. Now, one thing it's important to remember is that the session stays there. So even if you go from view to view, the session stays there. So I'm going to create another view just to show you that the session ID stays there. So I have page 2. I'm going to create now the page 3. And the page 3 receives nothing. Very simple page. Return view. Then I'm going to right click and add view. I'm going to add the razor view and then add. Page 3 creates use layout page, no layout, empty without model, and add. And then right here in the body, I'm just gonna put a H1 saying I am page 3. And then from page 2, or better yet, from view 2, I'm gonna put a link to go to page 3 or view 3. And then on the view 3, I'm gonna try to retrieve the session just to show you that the session remains even if you're changing to a different page. So now I'm gonna put the stopper right here on 49 and I'm gonna run the debugger again. I'm gonna send some data. AAA, submit, it goes to page 2. I know that the session is available on the page 2, and now I'm gonna go to page 3, and when I click here, it's gonna stop right here on line 49, and then I can check if the session is still there, even though I am now on a different page. So the debugger stopped on line 49. Now I can come here and verify if the string that I read from the session is still there. So if I hover over, I see here that the value is 23. Now on the previous run, it used to be 22. It's 23 now because we added one more row on the database. All right, so this proves to you that the session remains there even if you're on a different page. And that's not the case of the view bag. So let's take a look on the view bag now. All right, the view bag is a way for you to send the information from the controller to the view. And also, it's a one-time usage. So if you have something that you send to a view, and if you want that something to be available on the other view, you need to set the value again. So let me show you how the view bag works now. So I'm gonna go back to the page 2 action, and let's say I want to send a bunch of information to page 2. So if I want to send a bunch of information, I'm going to use the model. But what if I want to send just a single string and nothing else? So if that's the case, you can use the view bag. And to use the view bag, it's very easy. You just type view bag dots, and you can create whatever view bag you want, whatever name you want. This is dynamically created. So in this case here, I'm gonna create view bag message, then equals, and then the value. So the view bag also comes into the key value pair. So the key would be message, and the value is going to be whatever you set that to be. So the message is going to be everything is good. When I return the view bag is gonna be sent to the view. Remember, it's a one-time usage. So once this view bag goes to the view, that's it. Then the view bag is gone. So let me show how this works. So in this case, I'm sending this message to the view, and my view happens to be the page 2. So I'm gonna go to the page 2, and right here, I'm gonna create a break for a new line. To display the value of the view bag, it's very easy. I'm gonna put the @ sign and then the view bag dot, then the name of the view bag. So in this case, the name was message. And once I do that, the message will be displayed right here. So again, to set, I use this to set the view bag, and then to retrieve the value from the view bag, I just do the @ in view bag and the name of the view bag. So I'm gonna run this without the debugger this time, and I'm gonna type some values here, click on submit, then it goes to page 2, and the message is right here on the page 2. Now, the view bag is a one-time usage. That means if I set the view bag on this action, it will not be available on this action, which also means it will not be available on the view. So if I get this code here and I take to page 3, then this message right here will not show. So right before I do that, I'm gonna put another header here, and I'm gonna put view bag message. I just wanna put a tag here, so you know that after that comes the view bag. So I'm gonna put another view bag message right here, so we know that there should be something in between these two headers here. So I'm gonna run this again. I'm gonna put some values, click on submit. Now I'm gonna go to page 3, and then if you look right here on page 3, there is nothing between the starts and the ends of the view bag, and that proves to you that the view bag is a one-time thing. So if you want that same view bag to be available on page 3, you need to set that view bag again. So if you do that, then you have the value, or I can put whatever value that you want right here. And if you do this, then it will be available on the page. So I go to page 2, so the message is there. Now if I go to page 3, the message is there as well. Alright, so the whole point of this video is that the session variables are stored in the session, and the session will last as long as it's set to be. So it might be 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or longer. The lifetime of the session depends on the setting of the web server, and it's available on every single action, available on every single view of your website. Now, the memory space of session is not unlimited, so you should not store large values. But if you're just going to store an ID, a number, a name, that's okay. So store as little value as possible on the session. Also, the session is not 100% safe. It is safe, but not 100% safe. So because of that, do not store any sensitive information in the session. Now on the code, I showed to you that if you set the session on one view, you can read on a different view. Now the view bag is a one-time usage. The view bag does not get stored anywhere. It's a one-way data transfer from the controller to the view. And also it's a one-way and one-time usage. So because you set the view bag in one action, it does not mean it's going to be available on another action. So you have to reset the view bag every time you want to use it. Alright, so that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. So to do that, I'm going to use the HTTP to do that, I'm going to use the HTTP. To use that, I'm going to use the HTTP